Imagine this. You open your eyes. There's no blanket, no mattress, no pillow. Only the coarse, scratchy sensation of damp straw under your back. Your first breath of the day is thick with the scent of mold, smoke, and something else. You can't quite name it yet, but you will. The rooster outside has already started crowing, loud, guttural, persistent. The sound that means, get up, your suffering has just begun. You shift. Something scurries across your chest. A rat, maybe. Or a chicken. Yes, a chicken. She looks offended. You've rolled onto her nest for the third time this week. Your little brother is asleep next to you, snoring. Your father coughs in his sleep, lungs wheezing in and out like bellows. Your mother is already gone off to stoke the fire or milk the cow. It's still dark, but the smells are fully awake. A combination of feces, human sweat, livestock, wet wood, old food, and something you'll eventually stop noticing. But not today. Today you're new to the 14th century. And today it hits you in the face like a chamber pot flung from a second-story window. Let's talk about the bed. It's not a bed, it's a pile of straw. Damp, cold, and crawling with life. Lice, fleas, bedbugs. Mites your nocturnal companions. Congratulations. You've just met the biological delivery service that would go on to kill half of Europe. Yes. Fleas. The ones carrying the Yersinia pestis bacteria. But that's in the future. For now, you just know that your back itches and something is living in your armpit. You slept in your clothes. Because why wouldn't you? You own 2 shirts. Maybe. You slept next to your entire family. Not because you like each other, though maybe you do, but because it's the only way to stay warm. Privacy doesn't exist. Modesty is for nobles. There's no such thing as a toothbrush. No running water. No soap. You haven't bathed in weeks, and you probably won't for a few more. Nature calls. But there's no bathroom. No ceramic bowl. No toilet paper. You walk outside, or, if you're lucky, use a bucket in the corner of the house. If you live in a city, you might relieve yourself in a communal latrine, a wooden shack over a trench that hasn't been cleaned in ever. In Paris or London, there's a tradition. Pour your waste into the street, but shout garde à l'eau first. Watch out for the water. A courteous warning before a bucket of human waste lands on someone's head. Rivers double as sewage channels, laundry stations and drinking water. Yes, drinking. You wipe yourself with straw, or leaves, or nothing. Welcome to the most intimate part of medieval realism. You're hungry. Breakfast in the medieval world is not pancakes, eggs, and artisan espresso. It's barley gruel. Watery, bland, often spoiled. If you're lucky, a piece of hard bread, so dry and stale it could break a tooth. You drink? Not water. Water is dangerous. It carries filth and disease. You drink ale low alcohol, small beer. Safer because it's boiled during brewing. Even children drink it. Milk is rare, Cheese is hard. Butter is a luxury. Sugar? You've never heard of it. If someone offers you meat, question what kind of meat it is. Rat? Cat? Maybe. Your family doesn't own a cow. You might share one with 5 other families. And you hope it doesn't die this winter. Time to get dressed, except you already are. You slept in your clothes. Because you only have 1 set, maybe 2. They're made of wool, rough and itchy, dyed brown or grey with natural pigments plants, mud, and sometimes animal urine. There's no underwear, no socks. And your shoes, if you have them, are stiff leather tied with string. Washing your clothes? Once a month, perhaps? In winter? Don't even try. You've grown used to your own smell. And so has everyone else. In fact, smelling clean might actually make people suspicious. It's just after 6 in the morning. The sun hasn't even warmed the frost on the fields, but you're already outside. Your hands grip a wooden hoe, splintered, heavy, and slightly warped. You are a serf, a peasant bound to the land. You don't own your house. You don't own your tools. You don't even own your own life. You belong to the lord of the manor, a man you've probably never spoken to. A man who collects your harvest, your taxes, and sometimes your children. You till the soil, sow the seeds, weed the barley, feed the pigs, carry water, chop wood, mend fences, and pray the ox doesn't drop dead. Because if it does, you'll pull the plow yourself. There are no weekends, no holidays, no breaks, unless it's Sunday, and even then chores don't pause. And if it rains, you still work. Lightning storm? Too bad. Fever? Good luck. Rest is not your right. Think about your modern job. Maybe you clock in and clock out. You get paid, you get time off. Now imagine this. You work 14 hours a day. You get no money. You owe most of your harvest to your lord. And when the tax collector arrives, he takes a chicken, or your only pot, or your daughter's future. If your lord declares war, you're expected to fight, not with armor, with pitchforks, sticks, and hope. He owns the land. He owns the trees. He owns the game in the forest. If you're caught hunting without permission, it's not a fine. It's the noose. You live in fear of men in armor, wolves in the forest, thieves on the road, and the next plague that creeps in through fleas, food, or faith. You've been working for hours. Your arms ache. Your back screams. Your stomach growls. It's time for lunch, or what passes for it. Back at home, your wife has cooked a stew. If there's meat, it's a miracle. More likely it's turnips, beans, and barley boiled to mush and flavored with whatever she could scrape from a clay pot. Bread. Again. Ale. Again. There's no variety. No spices, unless your lord allows you a pinch of salt. Black pepper? Worth more than gold. Literally. You eat sitting on a wooden bench, maybe sharing a single bowl. You eat fast. Quietly. You go back to the field. Let's say you have a rebellious streak. Let's say, as a 21st century visitor, you're thinking, Why don't I just leave? The answer: you can't. You're not free. Leaving the land without permission is illegal. You'd be hunted, caught, branded, or worse, turned into an example. And if you do make it to another village, you're a stranger, a threat, possibly a spy. You'll be beaten or driven out, if you're lucky. There's no anonymity, no escape, no second chances. Your best hope in life is to survive long enough to die in your own bed, which, statistically, probably won't happen. It's now 11 o'clock a.m. You've done more physical labor in 6 hours than most modern people do in a week. Your hands are blistered. Your legs are covered in mud. Your lips are cracked. You haven't bathed. You smell like a combination of animal, smoke, and mildew. You haven't spoken to your family. Everyone is working. You haven't laughed. You haven't learned anything. You are 27 years old, and that's considered middle-aged. Statistically, you'll die before 35, from infection, famine, childbirth, accident, disease, war, or something stupid, like stepping on a nail. And yet, this is just normal. It's not a bad day. It's just Tuesday. You glance at the sun. It's not even noon. You sit under a bare tree for 2 minutes, wiping your forehead, watching the crows peck at something in the dirt. You think about food, about fire, about sleep. You think about God, about how He watches everything, and still lets this happen. And in the distance, a bell rings. You sigh. Stand up. It's time to go back to work. And it's only going to get worse from here. It's midday. The sun is hot now, and you've already put in 6 brutal hours of field labor. Your stomach grumbles. You fantasize about meat, cheese, fresh vegetables. But what you get instead is something altogether different. You walk home. Your shoes, if you're lucky enough to own any, are caked in dung. Your hands are bleeding. You haven't drunk clean water in days, because, spoiler alert, there is no such thing. Lunch awaits you, or, more accurately, a hot bowl of microbial roulette. You step inside the single-room cottage you call home. The stew pot bubbles faintly over the fire. It's been there for days. No one washes it. No one wants to. You dip in a ladle. What comes out is brown, soupy, vaguely chunky, and smells like yesterday's mistake reheated for the 3rd time. It's mostly vegetables. Onions, turnips, maybe cabbage if you're lucky. If you're really lucky, there's a scrap of pork fat floating on the surface. Not meat, just fat. It's from a pig that died 2 winters ago and was salted within an inch of its afterlife. Everything is boiled together for hours, sometimes days, in the same pot known as perpetual stew. It never empties. Just more ingredients, added as needed, like an eternal witch's brew. And it still tastes better than the bread. Bread is your staple. You eat it at every meal. But this isn't fresh-baked, crusty artisan bread. This is heavy, dark, dense bread, made from rye and sometimes barley. No yeast. No soft center. You eat it like a brick, because it is a brick. And then there's the ergot. Ergot is a fungus that grows on rye in damp conditions. You don't see it, but it's there. If your bread is laced with it, you'll soon know. Burning sensations in your limbs, muscle spasms, hallucinations, madness. It's called St. Anthony's fire, and it'll make you feel like you're dying from the inside out. Because you are. Some historians believe whole villages suffered from ergot poisoning without even realizing it. Dancing plagues, witchcraft, hysteria, mass visions. Perhaps all just symptoms of bad bread. Bon appetit. Milk. It spoils within hours, especially in summer. There are no refrigerators, no pasteurization, no concept of hygiene. You might milk a goat or a cow, but by the time it's served, it's probably curdled, warm, and filled with whatever crawled into it. Instead, most people turn it into cheese or butter. But that, too, requires luck and time and fermentation that doesn't always go as planned. And remember, you're poor. Most dairy is sent to the manor lord. What's left is scraps, rinds, the odd drop. So no, you don't get milk. You get ale. Again. Want meat? Sure. But it's not fresh. It's been salted beyond recognition, dried until it's more wood than flesh. If it was butchered weeks ago, it's probably swarming with flies, and the salt is the only thing standing between your stomach and complete collapse. The richer households might spice it to mask the rot. You're lucky if your stew doesn't crawl. Sometimes you eat organ meat, liver, kidneys, brains, intestines. Nothing goes to waste. Not because people are eco-friendly, but because they're desperate. The most common meat? Pork. The most common cause of food poisoning. Also pork. Coincidence? Not really. Salt is rare, precious, imported, taxed. Too much of it will dehydrate you. Too little, and nothing is preserved. You need it to make anything last, to turn spoiled into edible, to survive winter. And if you think salt is expensive today, try paying for it when it's literally worth more than gold, ounce for ounce. Without salt, your food decays in a matter of hours. You die in a matter of weeks. Everything you eat is either rotting, boiled, burned, or infected, and your body is too exhausted to care. There are no forks. Forks won't become common in Europe for another 200 years. You eat with your fingers, or with a knife if you have one. You share bowls. You share bread. You share germs. If you're lucky, you have a wooden spoon. It's stained with years of use. And yes, the taste of everything it has ever touched lingers on the surface. There are no napkins, no plates, just Trencher's stale slabs of bread used as edible plates. They soak up grease and stew, and when you're done, you either eat the trencher or throw it to the dogs. There is no hand washing, no soap, no sanitation. You scratch your nose, you feed to the dog, you wipe your mouth, you keep eating. This is normal. You're a peasant. So your menu is simple. Bread, porridge, vegetables, ale. Meat, rare. Fruit, seasonal. Eggs, only if the hens cooperate. Now contrast this with your lord. He eats beef, venison, roast goose, spiced wine, and imported fruit. His table is filled with color. Yours is brown. The medieval world isn't just unfair. It's structured to keep you in your place. Your hunger is part of the design. And if there's a bad harvest, guess who eats last? You do. Or more likely, you don't eat at all. Let's talk about parasites. Pork carries trichinosis. Undercooked meat could give you tapeworms. Dirty water spreads typhoid, dysentery, and cholera. Vegetables are grown in night soil, a polite term for human excrement. You don't know this. Even if you did, you couldn't change it. Cheese can carry mold. Milk can carry listeria. Bread can carry fungus. Stew can carry rot. Your entire diet is one long gamble. A bite could mean nourishment, or a slow, writhing death in your sleep. There are no expiration dates, no health inspectors, no plan B. If your child refuses to eat something, you don't lecture them, you thank them. They might have just dodged death. You're throwing up, you're sweating, you're dizzy. What do? There's no hospital, no antibiotics, no IV fluids, no understanding of bacteria. You go to the village healer. She prescribes dried toad skin, ground bones, boiled herbs, bleeding you out to balance your humors. If that fails, you pray. And if you survive, it's a miracle. Your stomach is full, sort of. You sit back, letting the warmth of the stew fade into your bones. You scratch the bite marks on your neck. You wonder if that buzzing in your ears is a fever or just another fly. Outside, your wife is already washing the pot with cold water from the same stream the pigs just drank from. You try not to think about it, because now it's time to go back to work. And tomorrow, you'll eat this exact meal again, and again, and again, until you don't. Imagine you're hungry. Your child hasn't eaten in 2 days. You take a loaf of bread from a cart while no one's looking. Minutes later, someone shouts. You're caught. Now you wait in the village square, tied to a post, surrounded by people you've known your whole life. Neighbors, cousins, maybe even the baker whose cart you raided. The Lord's bailiff arrives. He doesn't ask for your story. He announces your punishment. A hand. Gone. A hot blade is brought from the fire. You're held down. Someone counts. 3. 2. The rest is screams. There are laws, yes, but they don't protect you. They protect property, hierarchy, God's will as interpreted by those in charge. You don't get a lawyer. You don't get a jury. Trials are rare. If you're accused of something, especially theft, heresy, blasphemy, adultery, or just upsetting the wrong person, there are 3 ways to determine your guilt. Trial by ordeal, trial by combat, public confession, usually under torture. In other words, pain, violence, or submission. Let's say someone accuses you of lying or stealing. You claim innocence. The priest suggests an ordeal because God will protect to the righteous son. You might be forced to hold a red-hot iron and walk 3 steps. If your burns heal cleanly in full 3 days, you're innocent. Reach into boiling water to retrieve a stone. If your skin blisters, you're guilty. Be thrown into a river with your hands tied. If you float, you're guilty, because the water rejects you. If you sink, you're innocent, but you're also drowning. God is the judge. Nature is the executioner. Justice is a matter of luck. If someone challenges your word or your honor, you might be forced into trial by combat. It's exactly what it sounds like. 2 men enter. 1 man leaves. If you survive, you're innocent. If you die, well, you probably deserved it, according to God. Problem is, you're a peasant. The other guy is a trained knight, wearing armor, with a sword. You're holding a club or a rock. Good luck. Modern prisons didn't exist in the medieval village. If you were punished, it happened immediately and publicly. Some examples. Stocks. Your ankles and wrists locked in place for days. Spit on, urinated on, laughed at. The pillory. Similar, but upright. Good for shaming, flogging, lashes across the back, sometimes with barbed whips, branding, a hot iron against your skin. The letter T for thief, H for heretic, mutilation, cutting off ears, fingers, tongues, to mark you forever. Punishment wasn't about rehabilitation. It was about control. Let's say you're innocent. You didn't steal. You didn't curse. You didn't speak out of turn. You didn't look at the wrong person the wrong way. But someone says you did. That's enough. 1 rumor. 1 whisper. 1 lie told by someone more important than you. Maybe out of envy, revenge, or just boredom. And your life changes forever. Your innocence won't save you. Because truth is irrelevant in a system where fear is more powerful than facts. Believing the wrong thing in the Middle Ages could be worse than stealing, worse than murder. It could be heresy. Disagree with the church. Heretic. Speak against the priest. Heretic. Read the Bible in your own language. Heretic. Too much curiosity. Heretic. Too many questions. Heretic. And for heretics, justice came in 1 form: fire. You'd be tied to a stake, surrounded by a crowd, doused in oil, and burned slowly. The crowd would pray while your flesh turned black. And if you screamed too loud, they'd call it the devil's voice leaving your throat. You're a woman. You live alone. You're older. You have a few herbs, a cat, and some knowledge of how to cure a fever. You've never married. Or maybe your husband died. Or maybe you speak your mind. That's all it takes. You're now a witch. They come for you in the night, drag you from your bed, accuse you of flying, of cursing the crops, of sleeping with the devil. You're innocent. But remember, That doesn't matter. You're tied to a chair, dunked in a river. If you float, you're guilty. If you sink, you're dead. In either case, you're gone. Confessions were the heart of medieval justice. And if you didn't confess, they'd help you by stretching you on the rack until your limbs dislocated, by pressing your chest with iron weights, crushing your ribs, by using thumb screws, iron maidens, the heretic's fork, or the Judas cradle-awl, designed not to kill you, but to extract words. Words you never said. Thoughts you never thought. Names you never knew. You'll confess eventually. Everyone does. It's just a matter of when, not if. When you hear the village bell ring, sometimes it's for prayer. Sometimes it's for blood. Children watch as bodies are paraded through town. Parents whisper lessons through clenched teeth. Don't speak out. Don't stare. Don't be different. Justice here isn't about truth. It's about power, spectacle, obedience. The law doesn't keep you safe. It keeps you in line. And in a world where everything can kill you, cold, hunger, infection, animals, war, it's the system itself that ensures you'll never feel safe again. You survive the day, but just barely. Your body is broken, your spirit cracked. Tomorrow, you'll pray you don't get noticed, that your name doesn't come up, that you stay invisible. But your neighbor is coughing blood, and the rats are back. You wake up coughing. Your skin burns, your stomach cramps, your head pulses like it's going to explode. You know what this means. You're sick. In the 21st century, you'd take a test, visit a clinic, get antibiotics, maybe rest. But here in the Middle Ages, being sick is a gamble you rarely win. There are no hospitals, no clean beds, no germ theory, no antibiotics, no anesthesia, no real doctors. Only superstition, bloodletting, and hope. And sometimes not even that. Let's meet your physician. He wears long robes, maybe a wig, and speaks fluent Latin. That's how you know he's qualified, or at least wealthy. But knowledge? He believes illness is caused by an imbalance of the four humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Too too cold, too moist? Don't worry, he'll fix it, with a knife and a bowl, because his solution is bloodletting. You're weak, pale, dizzy. So naturally the doctor thinks you have too much blood. He ties a tourniquet around your arm, pulls out a curved blade or a leech, and begins. You bleed into a bowl. A lot. He watches the color change. He nods, satisfied. You're now weaker than before. But that's the point. No matter what disease you have, plague, fever, infection, broken bone, his answer is the same. Bleed it out. Sometimes from your wrist, sometimes from your neck. And if you die, he'll just say you were too far gone. They don't know about germs, or viruses, or bacteria. They think disease is caused by bad air, bad thoughts, sin, God's anger, the alignment of the planets. If you're sick, it might be your fault. You ate too much. You prayed too little. You were born under the wrong star. Some healers carry astrology charts and diagnose your illness by the moon phase. Others believe disease comes from demons. In both cases, herbs, chants, and amulets are just as common as scalpels. Science? Not yet invented. You hear rumors. The next village over, people are dying. Fast, violently, horribly. Boils under the arms, blood from the mouth, bodies piled in carts. It's here. The Black Death. You pray, you fast, you quarantine, if that word even exists. And then a man appears at your door, wearing a long cloak, gloves, a hat, and a terrifying mask shaped like a bird's beak. He's a plague doctor. Inside the beak is a bundle of herbs meant to filter the bad air. He carries a cane not to walk, but to poke you. From a distance. He doesn't heal. He records your death. You're injured. Maybe a farming accident. Maybe you took a bad fall. Or maybe you just developed a large, festering abscess on your leg. The surgeon, not a doctor, but a barber with a strong stomach, steps forward. There's no anesthesia, no sterilization, no gloves. He grips a knife, places a stick in your mouth, tells you to hold still. He cuts. You scream. You black out from pain or blood loss. If the wound becomes infected, which it almost certainly will, they may resort to amputation. Again, no anesthesia. A saw, a strap, a hot iron to cauterize the stump. If you survive, it's not thanks to science. It's thanks to your immune system and dumb luck. There are hospitals in the Middle Ages, but they're not what you think. They're run by monks, not doctors. There are no operating rooms, no medications, no sanitation. Beds are shared. Sheets are never changed. The air is thick with the smell of blood, feces, and incense. If you're sick enough to be admitted, you're probably going to die there. And that's okay, because many hospitals aren't designed to heal you. They're designed to help you die in peace. With a prayer and a priest. That's all. Let's say you're not physically sick, but mentally unwell. You see things, hear voices. You cry uncontrollably, or laugh when no one else does. The villagers say you're possessed. They tie you to a post, lock you in a cellar, or worse, send you to a monastery where your demons are whipped from your flesh. There is no concept of psychology. You are either a fool, a sinner, or cursed. Sometimes you're tolerated. More often, you're hidden. And when plague or famine strikes, people will say it's your fault. There's no dignity in death, no clean hospital room, no family gathered around, no painkillers, no comfort. You die in your bed, or in the field, or on the church floor. Maybe you get a priest, maybe not. Your body is wrapped in rags, thrown into a shallow grave, or dumped into a plague pit with dozens of others. There are no gravestones, no names, just rot. You are forgotten, just one more body in a world that never knew how to keep you alive. But maybe, just maybe, you weren't poor. Maybe you were lucky enough to be born a woman of status. Except, even then, your body isn't yours. You're born a girl. The village midwife holds you up. You cry. Your father frowns. No one celebrates. You are not an heir. You are a call from your first breath. Your destiny is already drawn. Serve, marry, bear children, obey. No one asks you who you want to be, because you are a daughter, not a person. You will be traded like land, measured by purity, silence, and womb worthiness. And you will be told again and again that this is the way God intended. At age 5, you are no longer a child. You are a worker in training. You sweep, you sew, you clean. You help your mother cook over open flames. If your family is wealthy, you're taught to read only religious texts and only under supervision. If your family is poor, and most are, you don't learn to read at all. Education is wasted on girls, they say. Instead, you're taught the 3 virtues: obedience, chastity, silence. By 10, you can spin wool, tend chickens, and keep a household running. By 12, you're ready for marriage, not love, not tool choice. Marriage. You don't fall in love. You're given away by your father to a man you've never spoken to. Sometimes he's older. Sometimes he's cruel. Sometimes he sees you as nothing more than a vessel for sons. You bring a dowry, a cow, a few acres, a chest of linens. In return, he gets your labor, your body, and your silence. Once married, you belong to him. By law, by church, by custom. If he beats you, it's not a crime. If he forces himself on you, well, he's your husband. So it's not considered rape. You become pregnant. Not once, not twice, over and over again. There is no contraception. There is no prenatal care. There is no understanding of childbirth beyond prayer and luck. You labor on a straw mat, surrounded by women. You bite down on cloth. You scream. You bleed. There are no doctors. There is no anesthesia. If the baby is breech, you die. If the bleeding doesn't stop, you die. If infection sets in, you die. 1 in 3 women won't survive childbirth. If your baby lives, you thank God. If not, you weep quietly. Then try again, because that is your duty. You are a wife, a mother, a servant, a shadow. Your name is not written in books. Your words are not recorded. Your face is not painted. You are background. Even noble women, rich and educated, are still owned just in silk instead of rags. You eat after the men. You walk behind them. You speak only when spoken to. You are expected to endure everything without complaint. And if you do it well enough, they'll call you virtuous. The rules are clear. Disobey your husband? Sin. Show too much skin? Sin. Speak out in public? Sin. Talk back to a priest? Sin. Get raped? Somehow? still your sin, and sin must be punished. In the eyes of the church, your body is temptation, your thoughts are danger, your existence is a test for men. So if crops fail, if storms come, if illness spreads, the priest might point to you. You talked too loud. You walked too freely. You must be a witch. And the sentence for that? Fire. You survive. He dies. And for a brief moment, you breathe. You're a widow now. Technically free. No man owns you. No one controls your body. But the world still does. If you're young, they'll force you to remarry. If you're old, they'll ignore you. If you're wealthy, they'll manipulate you. If you're poor, they'll pity you. Society doesn't know what to do with a woman who doesn't belong to a man. So you'll wear black, live small, and disappear quietly. There is one escape, the church. If you're lucky or noble or barren, you might enter a convent. No marriage, no children, no beatings. Just prayer, silence, service. Some women flourish there. They learn, they write, they teach. But most simply fade. Because even in the convent, your choices are still limited. You don't escape the system. You just move to a quieter part of it. You work from dawn until dark, spinning wool, milking animals, baking, brewing, mending, washing. You care for children, elderly, the sick, the dying. You run a household while pregnant, bleeding, and exhausted. And when you die, your name may never be spoken again, not because you weren't worthy, but because the world didn't think you mattered. You're not weak. You endure pain no man could. You create life in a world built to erase you. You whisper love into children who may not survive winter. You keep your family together when the world falls apart. No books are written about you, but without you, nothing survives. But now, imagine you're not a peasant or a woman. You're a priest or a noble, or just someone with questions. And you speak too freely about faith, doubt, or power. Now you're not just a heretic. You're the enemy of God. From the moment you're born, the church is there. You're baptized before your first memory. You confess sins before you understand them. You pray before you can read. You always tithe, no matter how little you have. The church owns more land than the crown, more power than the king, more fear than the executioner. And in the Middle Ages, salvation is not a choice. It's a law. You have questions. Why is the priest fat while children starve? Why does the bishop live in a palace? Why does the church sell forgiveness for coin? That last one has a name. Indulgences. You sin, you pay, you're forgiven. Simple. Corrupt? Maybe. But don't say it out loud. Because if you question the church, they question you. And when they do, it's not to clarify, it's to condemn. You hear it whispered first. He spoke Latin in private. She reads the Bible on her own. They said the priest was wrong. Then come the boots, the torchlight, the chains. You are dragged from your home, not tried, not defended, but interrogated by men in robes who claim to represent God, but behave like wolves. They don't need proof. They need your confession, and they will have it. You are strapped down, not in anger, in ritual. They light candles, they chant psalms, they say prayers, and then they begin. Thumbscrews, the rack, the heretic's fork, hot coals, iron boots, sleep deprivation, water torture, flaying. Each scream is recorded. Each confession is copied. Each tear is evidence, not of guilt, but of how thoroughly they broke you. When they are done with your flesh, they turn to your soul. Your sentence, execution by fire, not as punishment, as purification. They tie you to a stake. Read aloud your sins. Call on God to forgive you. Then flames. The crowd gathers to watch. Children sit on shoulders. Vendors sell food. It is a spectacle. You burn. They pray. The church calls it mercy, and your ashes blow into the wind like forgotten scripture. The church didn't just control souls, it controlled armies. The Crusades weren't just wars. They were holy obligations, launched with papal decrees, backed by promises of forgiveness and sold as a path to heaven. You kill, you pillage, you burn cities, you massacre entire populations. That's not sin. That's salvation if it's done in the name of Christ. The victims, Muslims, Jews, heretics, even fellow Christians when convenient. God was a banner, and the sword beneath it was always bloodied. Books were rare, precious, copied by hand, stored in monasteries, and when one book challenged the church, even slightly, it burned. Entire libraries were torched, ideas erased, languages lost. People who read too widely or wrote too boldly were marked as heretics. And in a world ruled by illiteracy, knowledge itself became a form of rebellion. So the church kept the masses obedient, not by teaching them, but by ensuring they could never learn. In many villages, there was no choice. You convert, or you leave, or you die. Pagans, Jews, Moors, all were given offers they couldn't refuse. Kneel, be baptized, accept Christ, or be branded as the enemy. Forced conversions became formal policy, sometimes done gently with missionaries and bribes, sometimes not with soldiers and torches. Either way, the result was the same. A world painted in one color, a faith imposed, not chosen. You learn quickly not to speak too loudly, not to question sermons, not to write down ideas, not to ask the wrong questions. Silence becomes survival. Even priests must walk carefully. One wrong word, one strange thought, and they too burn. Doubt becomes disease, and the cure is obedience. People pray not just out of belief, but out of fear. Not to be saved, but to be left alone. It wasn't all bad. The church built hospitals, sheltered orphans, fed the hungry, gave hope to the hopeless. But alongside mercy, it wielded control. And the greatest weapon wasn't fire. It was the belief that pain purified, suffering sanctified, and questioning meant damnation. Faith wasn't free. It was demanded. And once you gave it, you were never free again. But if the church ruled the spirit, who ruled the land? You're about to find out what it really means to serve a lord, and why war wasn't just for knights. You've seen the stories. A brave knight charges across a field. His armor shines. His sword sings. Trumpets blare. Victory is noble. Now forget all of that. Because for you, a medieval peasant war is filth, terror, and mud. There are no trumpets, only screams. There is no honor, only orders. And your weapon? A sharpened stick, a rusted pitchfork, a rock. You don't ride, you run. And when you fall, no one remembers your name. You're not a soldier. You're a farmer. But when your lord declares war, you go. Not because you want to, because you must. The king says it's about territory, or a border, or God. You don't know where you're going, or why. You're just told to show up, with your own tools, your own clothes, your own food, and march, sometimes for days, sometimes for weeks, in rain, through filth, across bodies. You're cold, you're tired, and you're probably already sick. And you haven't even seen the enemy yet. Before the battle, there's the camp. It stinks of sweat, urine, feces, death. There are no latrines, no doctors, no clean water. People cough blood in their sleep. Rats chew through tents. Boils spread like gossip. You eat moldy bread, drink spoiled ale, sleep in damp straw, share lice with strangers. Disease kills more soldiers than swords. And when morning comes, you line up anyway. Because if you don't, you'll be hanged. The battle begins with yelling, not tactics, not strategy, just yelling. You charge forward into fog, into arrows, into steel. You swing wildly, hoping not to die. There are no formations, no radios, just chaos. Armor doesn't make you invincible, it makes you heavy. Swords don't cut cleanly. They smash, bend, break bone, and the lucky ones die quickly. The rest, they scream for hours, bleeding into the dirt, begging for a mercy that doesn't come. You step over bodies that were friends, slip in blood. Keep going, because stopping means dying. The fighting ends, you're alive. Your ears are ringing, your arms are numb, your legs are soaked in blood. Some of it yours, most of it not. You look around, hundreds dead. Some are still groaning, some are missing limbs, some are children. You ask, who won? The answer doesn't matter, because your village is still gone. Your crops are still dying, and your lord will still take the harvest. Victory was never for you. You're told you can loot, so you do. You take bread from a corpse. You steal a tunic from a dying man. You rip rings off fingers that are still twitching. It feels wrong. But this is your only pay. No gold, no land. Just blood-stained fabric and rotten boots. The knights get armor. The lords get land. The church gets credit. You get fleas, trauma, and a limp that won't heal. Sometimes you're not the fighter. You're the one being fought over. Armies arrive at your village. They take your grain. They take your animals. Sometimes they take more. Women are raped. Homes are torched. Children vanish. It doesn't matter which flag they carry. French, English, Spanish, Catholic, Protestant. To you, they're all the same. Hungry men with weapons and no mercy. And when they leave, they say they did it for God, or glory, or their king. And they leave behind ash. Most soldiers are left to rot on the battlefield. The lucky ones are dumped into mass graves. No names, no markers. Some are burned, not to honor the dead, but to prevent the spread of plague. You won't be remembered. No statue, no song, just dirt and silence. If you return home, you're broken. Your body aches. Your hands shake. You wake up screaming. You stare at walls for hours. No one understands. No one talks about it. There's no word for trauma. No word for grief. No help. You go back to the fields. You till the soil. You bleed into the dirt again and wait for the next war. But while you're on the battlefield, something else is happening. Back home, the rats are multiplying, the fleas are biting, and someone in your village is coughing. It doesn't start with fire, or a war cry, or even a scream. It starts with a rat. Small, silent, harmless looking. A flea clings to its back. The flea carries a parasite. The parasite carries Yersinia pestis. The rat dies. The flea jumps to a dog, to a goat, to you. And within days, you're coughing, you're sweating, you're dying, and no one knows why. It begins with a fever, chills, dizziness. Then come the buboes, swollen lumps beneath your arms and groin, black and hot like burning coals. They grow, they burst. You bleed from your mouth. Your skin turns purple. You vomit blood. You can't breathe. Death comes within days, sometimes hours, and it's not quiet. It's violent, screaming, writhing, suffocating in your own fluids. There is no hope. There is only the plague. You sneeze. Your child catches it. They sneeze. Your neighbor catches it. They cough. Your entire village is sick. One cart arrives each morning to collect the dead. By noon, it returns, full. The priests stop giving last rites. The doctors flee. The rich lock themselves in castles. The poor are left to rot. No town is safe. No road. No port. The plague rides the wind, the ships, the trade. It doesn't stop, because no one knows how. Church bells stop ringing. Burials become mass pits. Families abandon one another. You see your wife collapse and you run. You hear your neighbor scream and you close your door. You see carts filled with corpses and you stop counting. People pray until their tongues swell. They whip themselves in the streets. They blame the Jews. They burn the outsiders. They beg the sky. But nothing answers, because the plague doesn't listen. It just kills. You try to hide indoors. You block the windows. You light herbs. You hold your breath when others enter. You pray. But it's too late. Your own bed, the place where you sleep, dream, hold your children, is now the stage of your death. You sweat through the sheets. You claw at the wood. You beg for water. You bleed into the straw. Your family stands near but far enough not to touch you. They wait for your last breath, not to comfort you, but to know when it's safe to burn the mattress. The Black Death doesn't just kill people. It kills structure. Fields are abandoned. Shops are shuttered. Entire villages vanish overnight. No one to bury the dead. No one to plow the fields. No one to enforce the law. You walk through towns and see only silence doors swinging open, dogs eating corpses, wind blowing through prayer flags. No one's writ anymore. Even the church stumbles, because the priests died too. And the people begin to ask, if God allows, this was he ever listening? By the time the wave recedes, it leaves millions of bodies behind. Historians estimate that 1 out of every 3 people in Europe is gone. In some places, it's half. There are no families untouched, no street without mourning, no future that looks the same. This wasn't just a disease. It was an extinction level reset, and nothing would ever be the same again. And yet, out of the ashes, something unexpected happens. With fewer people, wages rise, land becomes available. The poor begin to question the rich. The church loses its iron grip. Feudalism begins to crack. The Black Death killed millions. But in its aftermath, it also killed the system that ruled them. It planted the seeds for revolution, for science, for reason. But first, it had to burn everything, including you. But not all suffering ends with death. Some live, and in the Middle Ages, to live as a child was to be constantly owned, ordered, and overlooked. You enter the world in a rush of blood and screaming. If you're lucky, the midwife is sober. If you're luckier, your mother survives. But for many, this is where life ends. Infant mortality is brutal. Diseases strike before you're named. There are no vaccines, no clean water, no sterile cloth. 1 in 4 children dies before age 5. And if you do survive, you'll wish you hadn't. There is no word for childhood in most medieval languages. because it's not a phase. It's a waiting room for labor. By age 4, you're carrying firewood. By age 6, you're feeding animals. By age 8, you're in the fields. By 12, you're working like an adult. There are no toys, no schools, no storybooks. Play is rare. Rest is rarer. Laughter, fleeting. You are smaller, but not gentler. The world expects you to earn your place or get out of the way. If you're a boy, your worth is in your hands. Can you lift, build, fight? If your father is a farmer, you'll plow beside him. If he's a blacksmith, you'll burn your hands beside the forge. If he's a soldier, you'll carry a sword before you carry a thought. You are not taught to feel. You are taught to endure. You are a body first, a soul later, maybe never. And when war comes, and it always does, you go. No training, no choice, just a blade and silence. If you're a girl, your path is set early. You learn to cook, to spin, to kneel. You are taught penance, and then you watch your mother give birth in agony. You know your turn will come. There is no education, no questions, no escape. You may marry by 12, be pregnant by 13, be dead by 20. You are born to serve, and judged by how well you disappear into someone else's household. If your parents die, and many do, you are alone. There is no social worker, no orphanage, no system. You become a stray. You beg on the street. You steal from carts. You sleep in barns. You hope someone takes you in. Sometimes they do, but not for kindness. They want labor, a spare hand, someone to beat when things go wrong. You become a servant in rags and silence. No one remembers your name, not even the church. You make a mistake. You spill milk. You break a tool. You speak out of turn. The punishment is not a lecture. It's a hand, a belt, or a cane. Discipline is swift, often public, sometimes permanent. You are told, spare the rod, spoil the child, and the rod is never spared. Some children limp for life. Some never speak again. There is no love in correction, only control. Most children in the Middle Ages are illiterate. Books are rare. Education is reserved for boys of noble blood or church-bound futures. If you're lucky and male, you might learn to read Latin psalms, but never science, never poetry, never your own language. Girls, they're taught to sew, not write. Your thoughts stay in your head. Your questions go unanswered, and the world never knows what you could have become. The monastery opens its doors to some children, but not to protect them, to shape them. You become a monk in training, or a nun. You copy texts, clean floors, whisper prayers for hours. You live in saunts. You sleep on stone. You eat in hunger. You give up your childhood for God. And they call it salvation. By 13, you're considered an adult. Not because you're ready, because you're needed. You can work, you can marry, you can fight, you can die. There is no celebration, no ceremony, no coming of age. One day, you're a child. The next, you're a tool, and no one ever asks how you feel about it. But as you grow older and look back on the years of suffering, you might realize something. You survived, but only because you never fought the system. You lived because you never tried to change it. You think you're strong. You run 5 miles. You do cold showers. You meditate. You read philosophy. You disconnect for an hour. But let's be honest. You would not last a single day in the Middle Ages. Not because you're weak, but because you are modern. You expect comfort. You demand fairness. You believe in rights. They had none of those. And yet they survived. You have vaccines, glasses, toothpaste, soap beds, electricity, books, laws, choices. You eat fresh food. You drink clean water. You bathe when you want. You sleep without rats crawling on your face. You can speak your mind, marry or not, read, write, dream. You can say no. You can say enough. You are free in ways they never dared to imagine. Everything you have was built on their pain, their namelessness, their labor, their Heilands. They were crushed by systems that were never meant to be questioned. They lived through wars they didn't start, plagues they didn't understand, rules they didn't write. They believed suffering was normal, because no one told them otherwise. You don't remember their names, but their blood built your world. You have words like trauma, consent, rights, fairness, science. They had duty, sin, obedience, and fate. You are not better than them. You are luckier. You were born later. And that's everything. Look closely. Much of what they suffered still lingers, in new names, in new systems, in forgotten corners of the world. When you dismiss the past as barbaric, you forget how recent it really was. When you romanticize it, you insult those who never had a choice. History doesn't ask for your guilt, but it begs for your awareness. You are healthy. You are literate. You are safe. You are, by historical standards, unbelievably lucky. Your ancestors prayed for this world, and here you are. Don't waste it. You wouldn't survive a day in the Middle Ages, but maybe now you won't take this day for granted.